Okay, so right now it's nowhere near Christmas time, but I watched this video, Bill Maher or Maher, whatever. I don't know how to say the guy's name, but anyways, it's just got me. This is just what I'm into right now. Is researching about this kind of foolish stuff that they're talking about in this video and the whole zeitgeist thing and how they're trying to say that Jesus was just like any other, they're comparing them to these pagan gods, and it's really foolish because the Bible tells you not to, specifically the the second commandment tells you not to even bow down to any graven images. And there's actual scriptures that talk about how God was angry with them because they were worshiping the sun and the moon and the constellations and stuff like that. So it's just silly to say that the God of the Bible is comparable to these pagan religions that are worshiping, you know, sun gods and stuff like that. It's so goofy to me, you know what I mean? But he's going to talk about how the zeitgeist got millions and millions of people watched it. You know what I mean?
Compared to the size of the film, millions upon millions of people have watched it on YouTube. It's the single original Zeitgeist video has over 22 million views, and that's a long drawn out video. And then in addition to that, follow-up videos have been made with millions and millions of views, other offshoot videos, atheists making videos taking the info from Zeitgeist.
Yeah. So I mean, when you try to search this stuff out on the internet, I mean, if I try to just search stuff to try to find information that shows you that it's completely incorrect, I mean, you got to go way down deep into the search engine because there's tons of videos that just line up, and it's all about people. I don't know if people just feel better about like themselves and their sinful life, that they feel like they can just prove that the Bible's wrong or something. I don't know if it just helps them sleep better at night. I mean, I really doubt it. I mean, probably there's something else that's helping you sleep better at night. I mean, you probably got to smoke some weed or drink or do whatever it is you got to do to help you sleep. But I mean, is this really helping people? Again, I think that people are just, they're looking for things that are oppressing them, and people view Christianity as some kind of oppressive, um you know that it's oppressive to them. But again, if you run into somebody that tries to tell you about Jesus, I mean, you can literally just shake your head and be like, no thanks, I'm not okay with that, and then just walk on and continue to live your life your way. That's the reality of it. You know what I mean? But we live in this day and age where there's something going on that you're being told that you're oppressed somehow or another. There's always got to be something that's holding you back. You know what I mean? But really, what we believe, what I believe, is that it's the sin in your heart that's really holding you back, and that's what people don't really want to. They don't really want to realize that. I mean, how much liberty do people need until they figure that out? They're going to keep searching for things that's going to try to debunk God or Christianity or anything. And, again, I guess it's going to help them sleep better at night, or it's going to help them to just, live free and do whatever it is they want. And, the gospel is a warning. It's not, people need to really understand why it is you need to seek stuff like this out and even make videos like this. I mean, I was watching a video earlier, and they were talking about all the pop stars that are out now, and I mean, these people are just nuts, man. I mean, it's insane. So
In fact, one of those atheists would be a guy named Bill Maher. You may be familiar with him. Bill Maher is a anti-religious comedian. He does a lot of political talk, but whenever he can, he tries to get a pot shot in on religion. Catholicism in particular seems to.
Yeah, so this is what I watched, and this is really what kind of got me onto this subject. This guy really, you know, he's again, he's another person that is really trying to blame, religion for all the problems in the world, or he's trying to blame Christianity. I mean, he did go through multiple religions, but see, I mean, did he go through like the peaceful religions, supposedly, like the ones that just accept everybody, like Buddhism and Hinduism, that are just kind of like worshiping nature and stuff like that? Because they believe kind of like the God that they believe in. I mean, it is it is something that they're believing in beyond just evolution or something like that. They're believing in something too, even though they don't really get in your way, do they? They don't strike your conscience or anything. That's more of like a like a just, you know, I mean, if anything, those are the more fairy tale religions, you know what I'm saying? So
To be the one he despises the most. And he made a movie called Religulous. In Religulous, he repeated the same things that came out of Zeitgeist. Now, these do relate to Christmas, and I'll show you in just a second how. But I just want to show you that this is actually been very popularized. These attacks on Christmas, even if you haven't heard them, have been very popularized.
and you're gonna see he's gonna go through the whole list, and the two things that you'll see right there is born of a virgin and born on December 25th.
They're on the search engines, they're in the memes, they're in the chat rooms, and they are very known, sadly. But so let's dig into them. In Bill's movie, Bill Maher's movie, and in Zeitgeist, they go through a litany of gods and goddesses from back in the olden days. And then they declare that, for instance, Mithra was born of a virgin, was born on December 25th, had 12 disciples, performed miracles, was dead for 3 days, was resurrected, and Sunday was the day Mithra
Yeah, for real. So all those things right there. Yeah, like they know anything about this.
was worshipped. They'll also say this about Horus, similar things. Born on December 25th, born of a virgin, had a star in the east that appeared, was adored by 3 kings, was teaching at 12, baptized, and had his ministry at the age of 30 and had 12 disciples. The list goes on. Dionysus, born of a virgin, born on December 25th, performed miracles, was called the King of Kings, was called the Alpha and Omega, and then was resurrected. This list just goes on and on, name after name after name. Now, when you chase down the actual sources of where are the ancient documents that tell them these things about these deities, what you find is that Bill Maher is quoting Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist is quoting another book. That book's quoting another book. These are all modern books. And then that book has no ancient sources of any kind. It's just sort of a long string of one person quoting another who had no original sources. So it's difficult to do research on this because the documents don't exist. They can't be analyzed. But let me go through some details.
Okay. So it's pretty interesting that the concept of who Satan is in the Bible is Satan really is a copycat. You know what I mean? And obviously he's trying to deceive people. But if you go into if you delve into these religions that they're talking about, Christianity doesn't. God was angry with them for bowing down to the sun or the moon or any of the stars above. So that cancels out any type of pagan religion right there. It's just gone. You know what I mean? God instructed them not to worship the sun or the moon, right? And also the virgin, right? All these religions worship the mother of whoever these things are, the virgin. Now, Christianity does not worship the Virgin Mary. You know what I mean? That's something totally different. I mean, Jesus was born of a virgin.
On that.
Jesus was born of a virgin, but we're not instructed to worship Mary. You know what I mean? Let me get that straight right there. I mean, obviously people know that.
The Magi may have arrived on that day. Now, I give you several options because I want you to realize something. We don't know. That's why. We don't know. And someone, it's Sol Invictus. And we have vague reference to Sol Invictus in the same document that already gives December 25th as a recognized date for the birth of Christ. So We don't have a pre-established something else that's being replaced. It just doesn't seem to be the case. But when you hear this stuff, you just believe it. It's almost like if it's bad about Christianity, it must be true. It's like that's how the world responds. They're critic.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Like if it's against Christianity, then it's celebrated, because again, people really think that it's oppressive, and I mean, what's oppressive? Your conscience is oppressing you. I mean, Christians are not stopping you from partying and having premarital sex and having sex with whoever it is you want and doing whatever it is you want, and they're not stopping you from doing that. You know what I mean? If the only thing, like I said, the only thing is that that it's wrong inherently. In your heart that the way you're living is wrong. So you just wish that you could just push all these things out so you could just live whatever you want. But the Bible says that God cannot be mocked. You're going to reap what you sow, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try. You're going to reap it. I was watching a video earlier and it was talking about these pop stars, and they were talking about these people that mock God literally with their songs. And these people are tormented in their soul because it's like this popular thing to show all this crazy dramatic stuff, demonic stuff on your videos and stuff like that. And so they show it, they get more and more fans because they show this stuff, but then these people are tormented because of it. So if God didn't exist and this was all a myth, then these people that are mocking Christianity, they wouldn't be tormented in their soul, but they're opening doorways to demons and all this other stuff. So I'm kind of getting off subject, but the basis of this here is that the birthday of Jesus really is kind of what I'm getting at here. So this guy says it doesn't really matter. They don't really know. I mean, it's possible that they don't know, but they're all saying that, December 25th, and it lines up with a pagan holiday. And it is, I think it's, what is it, like the winter solstice or something like that, which is obviously some kind of, it has to do with like the seasons and the furthest away or something, that the coldest day or something like that. But let me check this one out right here. So this guy, he talks about it a little. They're asking the question, was Jesus born on December 25th, right? So let me go ahead and bring it to this.
That you can read for the audience real quick, just so they can get some context.
Revelation 12 says this. This is
okay. So he's going to read from Revelations 12, which according to him is he's saying that Revelations 12 is written because they're trying to show the time when Jesus was born in that scripture based upon the star charts or something like that. And again, I'll go right back to it. The Bible does not endorse astrology or anything like that. That kind of stuff is not Bible endorsed, but the heavens itself is like a clock. It's God's clock. It's so precise that you can date it all the way back thousands and thousands of years ago through these computer programs, and it will tell you exactly where the stars were at these times. And I don't know how the atheist even can explain the fact that how precise some of this stuff in the sky is. It's just beyond understanding. But he's going to talk about Revelations 12.
This is the first few verses. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. His tail swept out a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child. And here's this tells you who the child is. One who is to rule the nations with a rod of iron. It's a quotation of the psalm, messianic psalm. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. It's a reference to the resurrection and the ascension. And the woman who is Israel fled into the wilderness, and there she has a place prepared by God in which she's to be nourished for 1260 days. You know, when you take it, okay, I'm going to just assume that John actually means what he says. This is the
Okay, this guy he's really just going to go on and on about a lot of stuff, but the key pointer here is what he's going to say about like how he points it up to the date that he's going to talk about, and how it actually aligns itself with the Jewish calendar. You know what I mean? And it makes a lot more sense. You know what I mean?
This is astral stuff, celestial signs. And we accept this idea with the second coming all the time. We accept it with the star of the Magi all the time. But when you go to Revelation 12 and try to get people to read it that's just weird stuff. Well, why is it? What about signs of the sky at Pentecost, or the coming of the Son of Man, or then it's okay. But we can't do it with Revelation 12. Why not? Is my question. Why
Yeah,
not?
and so basically what you've done though, and if I can just try to summarize what this is all based.
There guy's a little loud. I can go to his other video right here that I have. And again, this guy, he's gonna get into like real big details about this kind of stuff. So let me play it from right here.
I'm going to leave Beale here. There is a rich tradition with.
Okay, let me stop it right here. He's going to reference a book that's called The Star That Astonished the World. And it's interesting because when he's talking about it on here, I guess this is a couple years back. He's saying that you can find this book free online. You can't find this book free online anymore. It's going to cost you some money now. And he's also going to reference a couple what do you call that? But a couple commentaries on Revelations. So when he talks about, I think this guy Beale is a commentary on Revelations, and then the other guy that he mentions, I can't remember the guy's name, but it's called The Star That Astonished the World is the name of the book.
Within the Second Temple, and of course the Christian and the rabbinic community later on, that identify Israel as the Virgin Zion and align her with this sort of vision, okay, the Virgin with the 12 stars. So when John uses it, this would have been completely familiar to Jewish readers, completely familiar. And if you're looking at the sky, again, Virgo is the obvious reference point. Now, the idea that the woman is a constellation is made plausible when one looks closely at the text. Look at the rest.
So again, he's talking about Revelations 12, and he's talking about it's the description of Jesus' actual birthday using the reference in Revelations 12, using the constellations as a reference marker for the day of the year. When I guess it's when Virgo crosses through the sun or something like that.
To the description here in Revelation 12. The description that the woman was clothed with the sun is stock astronomical language of the day for the sun being in the midst of a constellation. While the sun is in the woman, the moon is at her feet. For this situation to occur, the constellation of the woman must be an astronomical language on the ecliptic, the imaginary line in the sky that the sun and the moon follow in their journey through the zodiac constellations. And here,
I mean, this guy, he talks, and some of the stuff that he says, it might sound a little complicated, but he's basically just talking about the ecliptic would be the line that would unite all the constellations. Again, like I talked about it, like it's like a clock. I mean, I heard it said somewhere else that man can't even build a clock that can't even come close at all to what's in the heavens. You know, I mean, it's so precise that they can try to do it through human technology or whatever like that, but they can't do it. You know what I mean? They have to constantly be rearranging the clocks, winding them up, doing all this other stuff to make it work. But the stars itself, is just precise to I mean, it's like razor sharp precise, you know what I mean? But he's talking about the constellations being in line with the sun and the moon together, and the constellation itself is actually looks like it's given birth. And again, we're not talking about Jesus being, the sun or anything like that, but he's using that as a reference.
Here I'm going to go back to Psalm 19. Remember when Paul quotes Psalm 19 as his proof text that, hey, everybody should have known a divine king was born. He says their voice goes out through all the earth. Okay, he quotes the Septuagint. In other words, the stars, the celestial objects of Psalm 19 are communicating something here. And of course,
Yeah, I believe Psalm 19 says something like, look to the heavens, you know what I mean? To see,
of course, in Paul's mind, that something is the birth of the divine king, the Messiah. The Masoretic text reads, their line goes out through all the earth. And some of your translations might have that. Well, the line would be a reference to the ecliptic. And that takes us right back to this point that I was just discussing, that if you look at Revelation 12, this is a constellation, Virgo, the Virgin, the sun is in her midst, the moon is at her feet. And that means, again, if you're going to align those things, that means that we need to start paying attention to Virgo. And Virgo is on the ecliptic, the imaginary line through which the constellations follow through the sky. Again, the Masoretic text would align very well with what we're talking about here, not just the Septuagint. Now, I have a quote here from Martin about this that I want to share with you. He says, the Apostle John saw the scene when the sun was clothing or adorning the woman. This surely indicates that the position of the sun in the vision was located somewhere mid-body to the woman between the neck and the knees. The sun could hardly be said to clothe her if it were situated in her face or near her feet. The only time of the year that the sun could be in position to clothe the celestial woman called Virgo, that is to be mid-body, in the region where a pregnant woman carries a child, is when the sun
that's pretty interesting stuff right there.
is located between about 150 and 170 degrees along the ecliptic. This clothing of the woman by the sun occurs for a 20-day period each year. This 20-degree spread could indicate the general time when Jesus was born. So now we're starting to link what's in the sky and what John is describing with time.
Yeah, it's when the astrology charts or whatever like that. Again, like the Bible's not endorsing, looking to the astrology charts for your, to try to predict the future or anything like that. It's just trying to say that, like, it's always been known. You know what I mean? They've always known, what this stuff is.
Time, with real time during the year. That's the end of Martin's quote. That was from chapter 5. The constellation of the Virgin giving birth to the Messiah would, of course, have been viewed as quite coherent by the Magi, especially if they knew about Isaiah 7:14. Again, they're from Babylon, Persia. Again, there's lots and lots and lots of Jews there, starting with the exile. Daniel himself, again, part of this wider tradition of quote unquote.
Yeah, this guy that's talking, he goes all over the place. I could let him talk forever, but he goes all over the place.
Leo was considered a royal constellation since it was dominant.
So now he's going to talk about I believe what he's talking about right here is the actual star that they saw. You know what I mean?
By the star Regulus. Regulus would have also been in the picture. Again, the recreation of the circumstances of Revelation 12. So the star Regulus was known by astrologers as the king star. It was big and bright. Okay. So we had
this right here probably points to the exact year. You know what I mean?
King constellation. All right. The king constellation, Leo, Lion of Judah, and the star Regulus in that constellation, in Leo. The status of Regulus in Leo is important because on one of the possible dates for the Messianic birth, it came into conjunction with Jupiter. As the largest planet, Jupiter was considered the king planet in astrotheological thinking of the first century. As a result, the constellation Leo, the Messianic sign of the Lion of Judah, to Jews who read the heavens, literally here, had two conjoined signs of a royal birth within it. So in other words, if you're the Magi, and again, you're familiar, but obviously with Gentile, religious astronomical thinking, and you're familiar with the Hebrew scriptures because hey, you go to Bethlehem. If you're looking at this sign, you've got a virgin with 12 stars, the sun in her midst, the moon at her feet, the dragon. Okay, then above that you've got Leo, the lion. It's the symbol of the tribe of Judah, and within that constellation you have Jupiter, the king planet, and Regulus, the king star, overlapping. They're conjoined at this moment. Remember, we're talking about a 90-minute window where all these things are there. So the common.
Yeah, I believe I think I might have skipped past it, but he said something about the dragon being another constellation that I believe shifts from another side or something. Let me go ahead and jump forward again. Again, this guy goes all over the place. I mean, if I just played his whole video, I mean, this video would be over an hour long.
In the example, as it was setting, the Bible says the star, quote, went ahead of them, unquote. Upon reaching Jerusalem, the Magi were told to look toward Bethlehem for the newborn king, or they could have known, Micah 5:2. Again, they probably don't know that because what they ask, Herod, hey, where's the king of the Jews? And, it just depends how you take the conversation. What you think they knew or didn't know, or are they being cryptic? Are they, poking for information? What's going on? So you can read it different ways. But anyway, all of this occurred when the New Testament says the star, quote unquote, came to a halt in the heavens. That's Matthew 2:9. Jupiter stopped its motion and stood over where the young child was. In a word, the celestial body became stationary. Martin references Kittle's Theological Dictionary for this point in commenting on the.
Yeah, I believe they call this some kind of retrograde or something. I've seen something else about this, but the planet actually somehow or another, I guess it's the way that you're seeing it from the Earth, it looks like it actually stops and then starts to go back.
The passive form of the Greek word for the star's behavior, the Greek there is estathe. Kittel quotes from Schlotter's commentary, which is in German. In translation, it says, in distinction from estathe implies that the star halted, unquote. Again, you can look at that, and if you have Kittle's Theological Dictionary in the New Testament, you can look it up. So, Martin, has done some homework here. He's not just making it up, but he's aligning the language.
So I guess Martin is the name of the author of the book, The Star That Astonished the World.
Quite coherently with the behavior of Jupiter. Now, so that brings us to the point where we talked about the sign of Revelation 12, the signs that John gives us. If you're looking at the sky, then you have these other things going on, and I've narrowed our discussion to the Jupiter Regulus conjunction in Leo. Again, Martin has more if you want it. That gives us a birth of Jesus on September 11, 3 BC. However, that date is also the Day of Trumpets, or was also the Day of Trumpets. And it has.
So again, like what I said earlier, he's basically saying that this date that they came up with all this stuff that they found is the same day that it would be the Day of Trumpets, which was a Jewish holiday, and he's going to explain this a little bit too.
As a connection to Noah's flood, and so here we're going to drift into the reversing Hermann sort of stuff. The astronomical context of John's description of what he saw in the heavens in Revelation 12 puts the birth of Jesus on September 11, 3 BC. Again, that part, we know, we can see that. Again, just put it in an astronomy program, you're going to get that.
It's very interesting that he's dating it 3 years before BC. So 3 BC would be 3 years from, where they trying to say it is. And then he also says somewhere else in this video that they're wrong about Herod's death too. That Herod's death was actually probably 1 AD. And that would give enough time for Herod to try to kill the child and all that other stuff. He talks about this too. He says that's the main problem, that some of these other scholars say that this is not correct or something like that.
The literary context of Revelation 12 is of relevance here. Immediately preceding Revelation 12, John described the heavenly appearance of the temple and the Ark of the Covenant, Revelation 11:19. The Ark was the central symbol of God's presence with Israel. The birth of the child in Revelation 12 was John's way of saying that the presence of God had indeed returned to the earth.
Very interesting. So he's saying that that this date that he's got coincides with the the Day of Trumpets, which the Day of Trumpets would be the announcement that the presence of God has come into the camp, right? And so he's saying that the birth of Christ would be at the same time as the Day of the Trumpets, meaning that the presence of God has come back or has entered into the world or whatever. You know, I mean, something like that.
In the form of this child, the Messiah. New Testament scholar Greg Beale notes the significance of this juxtaposition, the Genesis 11 and the Genesis 12, the reference to the ark in the temple, and the reference is given to in Revelation 12, verse 7, the sign.
So, you know, this guy that's saying this Michael Heiser guy, he's not just saying this himself. He's saying this based upon, you know, a Revelation commentary that he's reading off, and he quotes several commentaries.
Beale writes this: a trumpet was to be blown on Tishri 1, which in the rabbinic period can be viewed as the beginning of the new year. God's eschatological judgment of all people was expected to fall on this day. The New Year trumpet also proclaimed hope in the ongoing and ultimate kingship of God, in God's judgment and reward according to people's deeds, and in Israel's final restoration. That's Beale, page 620, and he actually alludes to the Babylonian Talmud, Rosh Hashanah 16, for that information. Now, incredibly, and we've left Beale now, this is me, incredible.
Interesting, he quoted this guy's book, page 620 something.
The astronomical reconstruction of the circumstances of Revelation 12, 1-7 that produces a September 11th, 3 BC date for the birth of the Messiah was also the beginning of the Jewish New Year in 3 BC. Rosh.
That's pretty wild. He's saying that that it coincides with the New Year. He goes on and on about this stuff, and he talks about how they changed from the time that David and these other guys is different from. I think he's gonna talk about Noah too. He says some pretty wild stuff right here.
The heavens in Revelation 12 puts the birth of Jesus on September 11th, 3 BC. And that part, you know, we know, we can see that. Again, just put it in an astronomy program, you're going to get that. The literary context of Revelation 12 is of relevance here. Immediately preceding Revelation 12, John described the heavenly appearance of the temple and the Ark of the Covenant, Revelation 11:19. The Ark was the central symbol of God's presence with Israel. The birth of the child in Revelation 12 was John's way of saying that the presence of God had indeed returned to the earth in the form.
So it looks like I rewound it right there. Let me go ahead and jump over here.
In Mesopotamian astronomy, Orion was referred to, get this.
Oh yeah, he gets really wild right here. What he says right here is pretty wild.
As the true shepherd of Anu. Anu was the chief god of the.
So, I mean, if I can get some context, again, I'd have to let the whole video play. People could watch it if they want, but he's going to talk about how Jesus became the ultimate shepherd and came to combat the forces of darkness, which was the shepherd of Satan or something like that, is what he's going to say right here. And it all coincides with the birth date that he's talking about. And he even says here, I don't know if I skipped through that part too, but he talks about how Jesus and Noah possibly shared a birthday.
Realm, the sky. That's what Anu means. The shepherd motif was associated in the ancient Near East with kingship. Orion, therefore, the giant, therefore, was Anu's chosen king. But this Naphilah, this giant, wasn't the true shepherd king for the followers of Yahweh.
He's talking about the Nephilim right there. So he's talking about there was a shepherd for the Nephilim. I'm imagining that would be Satan, I guess. You know what I mean? And the Nephilim are coming to deceive the world and teach people how to just be evil. You know what I mean?
The true God. So there's an immediate theological polemic going on here. The shepherd imagery is overtly messianic. Again, a quote from Andrew Hill here, his History of Israel article, the United Marker. This is in one of the IVP dictionaries. He writes, the king took on numerous idealized roles as leader of his people, including the idea of royal adoption. The deity adopts the king as his son, and the shepherd of the people. 2 Samuel 5:2, 2 Samuel 7:7.
It looks like he's referring it back to David, who was a shepherd, right?
David became the model of the ideal king, the ideal shepherd, and the prototype of the Messiah as the ultimate shepherd king. References there, Jeremiah 33:15, Ezekiel 34:23 through 24, Ezekiel 37:24 and 25. Again, this is well-known messianic kingly image.
Yeah, look up some of those scriptures. Those are some pretty cool scriptures right there. I think Jeremiah 33:15 talks about it relates the Messiah to a shepherd.
The theological messaging of all this is pretty startling. A Messiah whose birth on Tishri 1 was followed in the next month by the rising of Pleiades Orion. And that would have signaled the arrival of Yahweh's shepherd king to combat, to oppose Anu's shepherd king. Again, hearkening back to the original context of Genesis 6:1 through 4. If you were a literate Jew and you understood because you had read Second Temple material like Enoch.
This is classic Michael Heiser right here. This guy is all you know, some of these guys that are very popular on the internet, they really love to talk about like the Anunnaki and stuff. Like, what am I saying? Not the Anunnaki. They love to talk about the Nephilim. You know what I mean? They love to talk about this kind of stuff. And I don't know if it's just a popular thing. You know, everyone wants to know what's going on.
The Book of the Giants and some other stuff. If you had read that material and you knew, again, the original context for Genesis 6:1 through 4, and you knew how that fit into the flood. You knew how to read Genesis 6:1 through 4, and you knew how to read the flood account. And the flood account was associated with Noah, obviously. And Noah's birthday was Tishri 1. And now we have the ultimate shepherd king born on the same date. What would you have thought?
Michael Heiser's getting excited right there, you know, because he's putting it all together. He's putting together that, you know, it's Jesus and Noah share the same birthday, and Noah's like the ultimate kind of like, you know, Jesus is pretty much like way like beyond Noah. I think he says something like that right here.
I'll tell you what you would have thought. You would have thought that this is the person who is going to reverse the effects. He's going to be the ultimate Noah. Yeah. He's Noah on steroids, okay? He is going to be the ultimate bringer of the judgment, not just in this case of a flood, you know, to wipe out the Nephilim, because
yeah, a lot of people forget that when Jesus came, he literally, I mean, people think because the world that we're living in now is getting darker and darker, but when Jesus came on the earth, he pretty much did the knockout blow to all the powers of darkness. Like he put them all in check. Like, and this is what he's kind of referring to right here. It's not just that he came to save mankind from their sins. He came to judge the powers of darkness. Like, you know,
that didn't entirely take care of the problem. This shepherd king, this new Noah, will take care of the entire problem. It is a sweeping solution to the effects of the sin brought on by Genesis 6:1 through 4. And of course,
he'll go on and on about this stuff, but there's one more thing that I wanted to get to again. So he's saying that the birth of Jesus is in September. He specifically dated it as September 11th, which is very bizarre if you think about that. You know, I mean, there's stuff that I've seen on the internet, the conspiracies about like the whole that December 11th was a ritual sacrifice and all this other weird stuff. And again, I mean, people can say all kinds of stuff online, and you know, the pillar, the twin towers being two pillars and all this other stuff, whether or not it was like orchestrated by man, or whether it was basically just Satan trying to mock God, or whether it was like, you know, they were trying to bring in the Antichrist. Who knows really what's going on there? But I mean, I want to move on to this next one. Again, he dated it as September 11th, specifically the specific actual date. But let's go to this guy right here. And then this guy says a lot of crazy stuff, but let's see what he says right here.
Urns of myrrh and oil. And the reason this was
Make
done,
sure it's on the right spot here.
and what amazes me is especially for Christians who try to justify, and God forgive you, when they try to justify Christmas.
Okay, so this guy right here, I mean, I don't know if people know who he is. He says that he was in the Illuminati, and he was a witch and all this other stuff, and he talks about a lot of crazy stuff.
Okay, let's first start with Luke chapter 2, and we're going to go from verse 1 to verse 5, okay? It says, and it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child.
So this is kind of showing you that, like, when Mary is about to give birth to Jesus, they were on their way to pay the tax, right?
Now, there's also another passage, we're just going to drop down to it, in verse 8. And there were in the same countries shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. Now, there's two markers here, people.
So if you catch that when you read, he's going to talk about it right here, but he's saying that the sheep were actually in the field at this time.
The taxing of Caesar Augustus, which was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria, is a historical event. In other words, it's a fixed time. This time, and this is where this matches into what was going on here, with the shepherds who are out in the field tending over their flock by night. Ladies and gentlemen, and I've spoken to people who've lived in Jerusalem in those areas. The sheep are not brought out of the field till at least the middle part of October. When October hits, the latest, usually it's the middle of October, right around there, that's when the sheep will be brought in. The taxing of the people by Caesar Augustus when Cyrenius was governor of Syria, as far as we historically have determined, this was around the beginning of September.
This is pretty interesting that this guy comes up with the same date using a whole different type of formula. You know what I mean? And I guess you'd have to speculate that, they're working together on this. Who knows really? The other guy did it through astrology charts, and this guy's doing it just based upon like the logic of what the text is saying right here.
So considering when the taxing occurred and when the sheep are traditionally brought out of the field, there is no way Christ could have been born on December 25th, because these two events were 2.5 months to 3 years before the so-called birthday of Christ.
Did you see that he came up with the same year too? That's pretty wild, dude. You can't make this stuff up. That's wild. So he said 3 years. Remember that? Remember the other guy said September 11th, 3 BC. He's saying it's 3 years before they're trying to say that it is, and it's not in December. It's in September. He said that right there.
And Mary was pregnant, as you will know. She's here riding into Jerusalem, and any day now she's given birth to Christ. So there was no way it could be the 25th. So the problem at this point is, whose birthday was it?
Yeah, I'm not gonna play the rest. It's crazy stuff, but yeah, again, it's pretty interesting that he pretty much came up with the same date as this guy that did this astronomy chart did. I mean, maybe the guy that wrote the book or whatever, The Star That Astonished the World, had watched this and then just tried to make it match up. I mean, who knows really? You know what I mean? But I mean, this it's pretty crazy stuff, but because it's like people want to say all this other weird stuff. And again, most of the stuff from the Zeitgeist video, um, I mean, they're basing it upon stuff that's not even biblical, really. When you look at it, like, like again, Christianity does not worship the sun in the sky. That's forbidden. You know what I mean? We don't worship the moon. That's forbidden also. We don't worship the stars. All that stuff is forbidden. Yet they want to compare our faith to these pagan beliefs that worship all this other stuff. He said, do not even make any kind of carved image that you would worship it. You know what I mean? And again, the people just, they want to have an excuse to just be like, oh, it's fake. You know what I mean? Like, we don't got to worry about anything. Again, you're going to be judged based upon the spirit of truth speaks to people. You know what I mean? All these people that want to believe all this stuff and act like everything's cool and all Christians are stupid and all this other stuff. The spirit of truth convicts you. You know what I mean? And you have to live with that, whether or not you want to make fun of us because, we're not perfect or whatever, or we're, all this other stuff. But the Bible itself is the living word of God. And, I'm sure, Satan's got all kinds of plans, but, he's not allowed to touch the word of God. He's not allowed to touch it. He can get in the church. He can do all kinds of weird stuff. He can get pastors to commit adultery. He can get these priests that aren't even, that aren't even really following the Bible the way that it's supposed to be followed, to do all kinds of weird stuff, be perverts or whatever like that. He can try to bring paganism into the Catholic Church, all this other stuff. But the Bible itself, the Word of God, is not altered. You know what I mean? And that's the key thing. And again, the Bible doesn't specifically, where they come up with the date. You know what I mean? This guy's basically saying September 3 BC. The other guy said the same thing. And again, I'm not like I'm not condemning anybody that wants to celebrate Christmas or whatever like that. But I'm just saying that, like, these people that want to say that it's a pagan, like, Jesus's birthday is on a pagan holiday. Y'all don't even know what's going on, do you? Y'all just jump right on the next train that endorses you to try to free your conscience from God. You know what I mean? And again, you can do whatever you want, man. I mean, Jesus never made anyone follow him. He's not ever forcing people to follow him. So that's about it right here.